Hi, today we're going to be talking about Onsen UI's fundamentals. Learning the fundamentals will give you a rudimentary understanding of Onsen UI's architecture, so make sure you pay attention during this video as we will be going over all the main components of how our software works. If you want more in-depth information or the ability to work with the source code of any of the features we go over, please visit the fundamentals page, conveniently located on our site. To begin, let's talk about what the term page is. In the application world, a page is commonly referred to as a window or a page view. In Onsen UI, a page is a container that fully covers the viewpoint, usually a screen. In Onsen UI, a page can be defined by wrapping an onspage element. To start, let's create a sample page and a toolbar. The sample code here is the most basic app that contains these components. Inside the page container, you can add any other native HTML DOM elements or Onsen UI components. As a reminder, all of this code is available on Onsen UI's fundamentals page. So now that we have a page created, the natural next question is how do you manage and integrate additional pages for more complex apps? In Onsen UI, multiple pages can be achieved by defining multiple onspage components. In order to create multiple pages, we need to understand the concept of template. A template defines a generic layout that is used during execution time to create instances. If a template is modified at a given time, it won't change the already created instances, but will affect the ones created later on. In Onsen UI, this layout must always be an onspage component, one single root node. Any other component must be a child of the page. A template must be given a unique ID that will be used later on to reference the template. Templates can be defined in two different ways, the first being separate files. Separate files are HTML files that contain a single onspage component is the root. Their ID is given by the file path in the project directory. For example, the file path view page1.html is the ID for page 1. The second way is to use template elements inside index.html. Sometimes it is useful to have a bunch of templates defined in this main file. HTML template elements can hold pages just like separate files do. Their ID in this case must be manually specified in the ID attribute, as visualized in this source code. But how can you move between these pages and switch their visibility? Onsen UI has three components that are used to manage multiple pages: Ons Navigator, Ons Tabber, and Ons Splitter. Let's start with Navigator. If the app contains multiple pages in a hierarchical order, consider using the Navigator component. It provides a page stack where you can push and pop pages with transition animations. The second component you can use is the tab bar. If the app contains multiple pages at the same level, a tab bar is an appropriate choice. Users can pick which page to display by clicking the item on the tab. The final component is the splitter. Although it is named a splitter, small devices can create a side menu which can be shown or hidden by user interaction. On larger screens, this will split a single page into two. By using these components, an app can have multiple pages, allowing creation of everything from simple to complex user interfaces. They're composable, meaning that you can combine them to achieve the desired routing for your specific app. In general, external routers are not necessary thanks to these three components. Now that you have the necessary skills and information to lay out a page, as well as manage multiple pages, it's time to access the component using JavaScript to make it a dynamic component. The Ons JavaScript object is globally available and has several useful methods and properties. For example, onceReady callback method can be used to wait for app initialization. Specifically, this function waits until DOM content loaded and Cordova's device-ready events are fired. For instance, this is useful to know when it is safe to make calls to Cordova APIs. Now that we've tackled these components, we're ready to talk about attributes, properties, methods, and events in Onsen UI components. The Onsen UI component is a simple DOM element, or a JavaScript object. Thus, it has its own properties, methods, and events. These can be used to configure behavior or call a specific function during runtime. Let's take Ons Navigator for example, and see how it can be used. An attribute either modifies the default functionality or specifies how the component should perform. Most attributes are optional. Note that some attributes need to be specified before page initialization. For instance, Onsen Navigator can take the animation attribute and change it at any time. A component has properties which can be accessed from the DOM element. For instance, you could access the top page property of an Onsen Navigator component to get information about the top page. A method is a function that triggers a specific action for the component. The following example is calling pushPage method to open a new page. DOM events are fired at specific timing. To listen for an event, use JavaScript's addEventListener function. An event is also supplied with an event object, which is useful for getting some details. Events can bubble up, which means that event listeners can be added to parent components or directly to the document instead. As a final reminder, make sure to check out our website where you can interact with all of the code that you have seen here in this video. Great job! That's it for today's video in Onsen UI's fundamentals. By now, you should have a fairly good understanding of the basics. Keep in mind that this is just the beginning, and there's so much more that you can learn.